Welcome back. All right, so now that the internet's argument's over where I had players who were number 1 overall draft picks ranked, why not get into number 2 draft picks? So yeah, let's go through it. And yes, my opinion will be different than the opinion of others. That's okay. It's okay to have a difference of opinion. It's fine. It's all right. Something I myself have learned over the years. So 1 through 20, same rules. Just basically me looking at these players and going, okay, so if I had to rank them, how would I rank them? At number 20 from 2017, Nolan Patrick. So when we go through drafts, and it includes the 2012 draft, usually the 2012 draft pick ends up at, or, well, always near the bottom, but usually at the bottom. In this case, it's Nolan Patrick, who was drafted back in 2017, and it's because he got injured. And the injuries just kept propping up, and it really cut short a career that could have been pretty good. But sadly for Nolan Patrick, he ends up at the bottom of this list. And it's an absolute shame because Nolan Patrick could have been a pretty darn good player. Number 19, the 2012 draft pick. So, yeah, 2012 still ends up at the bottom. Ryan Murray was drafted number 2 back in 2012. Ryan Murray was a decent defenseman. And in terms of top 4 at certain points and then as a depth defenseman, he had a decent career. But these are number 2 draft picks overall, and so the standard ends up being a little bit higher. And so Ryan Murray ends up 19th on the list today. Yeah, I don't think there'll be a lot of arguments. The arguments are usually on this side of the board. Number 18 from 2022, and it's because he hasn't really shown at the NHL level yet that skill that made him a number 2 draft pick, Shimon Nemitz for the New Jersey Devils. Lots of time still for him to get things going. Keep in mind he is a defenseman, and with defensemen, they're very unpredictable. It's part of the reason why yesterday when I did the video on breakthrough players, I don't count defensemen. Defensemen are very difficult to rank, and not only that, a defenseman can have a breakthrough season that has nothing to do with points. So in Nemitz's case, he could very well be a solid performer for New Jersey for a long time to come. And maybe we start to see that potential realized this season. But at this point for this list, he is 18th on the board. Number 17 from 2019. New York Rangers pick Kaapo Kakko, who of course is now a member of the Seattle Kraken. Kakko, I've been rooting for Kakko for years. And just over the last about, year to 18 months, it's not that it's really changed. I'm still rooting for him. I don't know how much upside is still there with Kakko since we're 6 years out from his draft year. But he does end up 17th on the board, so there's still 3 beneath him. Nemitz, Murray, and Patrick, and there's only one that could pass him, so the worst for him would be 18th, but there's definitely a chance he could move up the next time that I do one of these videos. So he's number 17 on this list. Number 16, from 2005, Bobby Ryan. Good player, long career, absolutely, but as these are number 2 draft picks, he ends up 16th on the list. I went back and forth on a few of the players and where they are on the list. I kind of felt like Ryan could have slid anywhere into 14, 15, or 16. I have him at 16 on the list. I don't consider that to be a bad thing necessarily. Like I said, these are number 2 draft picks overall. Ryan had a good career. Just for me, the other players I would rank ahead of him, including at number 15, for Seattle from 2021. Matty Beniers. Matty Beniers, his rookie season, excellent. Second year, pretty good. This year could be excellent for him. I like Beniers' game, and I do think that he'll be one of the better top 4. One of the better two-way forwards in the game. That's the terminology I was looking for. But yeah, Matty Beniers for me at number 15. Seattle's number 1 draft pick back in 2021. I do feel like 15 is the right spot for him. Again, you guys can let me know your thoughts. It's kind of a fun thing to do during the summer. It's something I enjoy doing, and so there you go. Number 14 from 2007. One thing that I do like with James Van Riemsdyk, you can shorten his name to JVR. The problem is there are people who are like, who's JVR? So that happens. So James Van Riemsdyk, who has been a good goal scorer throughout his career, and he's bounced around, but there's a way to look at it. Either he's bounced around, or there's a lot of teams that have wanted his services. So you can look at it that way. But Van Riemsdyk, for me, just for the body of work throughout his career, for his consistency through most of his career as well, I feel like Van Riemsdyk, I can place him 14th and feel pretty good about that. I think 14 through 16, you could kind of interchange probably any of them based on your own reasonings for that. But for me, Van Riemsdyk ends up 14th on the board. And at times underrated, at times overrated. For me, I've rated him at 14th. Number 13 from 2023. And I feel like next time I do this, Leo Carlsson's going to be a lot higher. My pick in yesterday's breakthrough video for a player who I think his totals are just going to skyrocket. Leo Carlsson, I'm putting him at 13 at this point. Big forward, strong, good player, good puck handler. There's not a whole lot that you can dislike with his game. At least in my opinion, you may have reasons to dislike his game. That's the wonders of the internet, the difference of opinions and all that. But for me, Leo Carlsson's an absolute beast. And the Ducks could be kind of fun to watch this year. Could be quite the season. Number 12. No, that's number 2. Don't put that name up there. Unless I want to make the internet meltdown. Number 12. From the LA Kings. And this is 2022, right? Yeah, 2022. No, 2020, actually. Quentin Byfield. So the LA Kings drafted Byfield. It's taken him a little while, but he's a big forward, and it can take a while for the bigger players to sometimes get acclimated to the NHL game. I think Byfield's had a very good last year and a half especially, and I still think there's more to give in Byfield's game, but I think he's already shown enough that I can put him at 12. I do think that he will continue to play at that really high level. I think 60-plus point seasons are going to be the standard for him, and 70 points he could get there. And then once Ante Kopitar's careers come to a finish, if Byfield ends up that number 1 center, we may be talking about 80-plus point seasons as well. So I like Byfield's game a lot. Some may say, no, I don't like Byfield's game, and that's perfectly fine. Number 11, from 2018, a very talented forward that I wish scored more. Every time I talk about Andrei Svechnikov, who I think has already proven himself as a very good top 6 forward in the National Hockey League, I always still feel like, he could score more than that. I think there is a ridiculous amount of talent with Andrei Svechnikov, and we've scratched the surface of it at times. We've seen the magic he can work with the hockey puck, and at some point, I think he's going to have a ridiculous season. At some point, he's going to have that career year where he's got like 45 goals, maybe ends up with 95 points, and finally breaks through. And then, just for my sake, then the year after, it'll be back down to about 60, 65 points, all that. But I do think Svechnikov has that level of talent, and we're very likely to see a career year from him at some point soon, I think. Because a lot of players end up with those kinds of career years. Number 10. And, I thought about placing him lower, but based on his defensive game, how long he's been in the game, how he's adapted his game as he's gotten older, Jordan Staal from 2006, I think belongs in the top 10. Jordan Staal being a finalist for the Selke, wasn't it last year he was a finalist for the Selke? Absolutely insane. He is so strong defensively. He is such a good player. And from that aspect, he seems to be defying the aging process. So I'm not concerned with the offensive numbers or anything like that. I think Staal is a fantastic forward and has consistently been very good defensively. So to me, Jordan Staal at number 10, I think is the right placement for him. I would totally understand if you just look from an offensive perspective, you might have him at 16th, but I couldn't just look at it from an offensive perspective. I had to say, just defensively and what he's been able to do as a shutdown forward has been very impressive, so I have him in the top 10. Number 9, from 2016, and this is the thing. Almost every one of these players, you can find a weakness and you can find a strength. And so I'm trying to focus on the strengths. Patrick Laine, the start to his career, some of those years in Winnipeg, and honestly, outside of injury, his time in Columbus, he was productive. He didn't have a bad season in Montreal. Patrick Laine still has that top six potential. And his goal scoring ability, we know how good it can be. And it feels like there just needs to be some sort of a Laine whisperer, as it were, a coach who can just guide Laine in the right way. And he could end up back into that 40 goal, maybe 45 goal list. He does need to play with top players, but he's also got to earn that top line time. So there is that trick with Laine. We've talked about it in Winnipeg, Columbus. We're talking about it with Montreal. There's discussions about whether or not he might be on the way out of Montreal because he's on, final year of his contract and all of that. But yeah, Laine is always a good talking point, and his career numbers have been pretty good. And so I'm putting him at number 9 and thinking he's still a very talented forward. I'm not sure I was going vastly. You can just ninja adjust vastly and just forget that I said vastly altogether. Number 8. From 2010, Tyler Seguin. Tyler Seguin, also talented forward. Yep. At times frustrating, sure. At times very, very good and very focused. Yep. Is he overpaid? Yeah, probably at this point in time in his career, much like you could make that argument with Laine as well. Seguin has been a very good forward for the Dallas Stars for a long time. We'll see what he does this coming season. Needs to stay healthy, of course. But yeah, Seguin, I think at number 8, I feel like that's the right spot for him at this point in time. Number 7. From 2011, and what a great story he was this season. And I really hope he's going to be playing a bunch of games going forward because Gabriel Landeskog, when he's healthy, as the captain of the Colorado Avalanche, he makes a huge difference. I like Landeskog's game a lot. I think that he showed after such a long layoff that he can still go. It will be interesting to see how that works over an 82-game schedule, with travel being as brutal as it can be. Does he play 60 games? Does he play 70 games? Does he play 50 or 55? Does he go for the full 82? I don't think he plays the full 82, but Landeskog, when he's in the lineup, we know how good he is. We know he's a leader. Stanley Cup ring in 2022, and Colorado's had their struggles with him out when it comes to the playoffs. Those two things are definitely related to one another, so I put Landeskog at 7. At 6, and this is where it kind of turns a bit into chicken scratch, because I had to go back and forth. Because right now, if I was ranking these players for where they're at right now, Sam Reinhart is top 3 or top 2. But for their careers, I would have Sam Reinhart at 6th. Now, Reinhart was a number 2 draft pick back in 2014 by the Buffalo Sabres. Now, of course, he is Florida property. And I think Florida's pretty happy with Reinhart. I don't know how Buffalo feels about that trade now, comparatively speaking with when it was made. But Reinhart has shown he has an incredible knack around the net. He is very good shorthanded, and he's an explosive talent in his own right. He is a two-way beast himself. So Sam Reinhart, 6th on the list for me. I did have him... I had him as high as 4th, and I've gone back and forth on where I have everybody. So let me just discuss by going to number 5. Back in 2008, Drew Doughty, drafted by the LA Kings. Excellent career. Despite injuries, still a very effective defenseman, and went out there and played like he wanted to be in Four Nations this year. I think Drew Doughty's still an effective defenseman in the National Hockey League. Sure, he's not the defenseman he was 5 or 6 years ago. As I say about a lot of players, because that's just how that whole time thing works. It sucks. I have tried numerous times to set my clock to like 1986. Never works. But yeah, Drew Doughty, star defenseman in the National Hockey League. I know that there are people who argue him being overrated. At times, I would agree with him having been overrated. At this point, I'd kind of go the other way. I would say that because people talk about him being overrated as much as they have, I think at this point, there's some people who might be underrating him just a little bit. So, Drew Doughty cracks the top 5, and we move along to number 4. Number 4 from 2015 Buffalo Sabres draft Jack Eichel. So, bit of a pattern here. Buffalo drafts second overall, and those players go on and win Stanley Cup somewhere else after toiling in Buffalo for a while. Jack Eichel was... I think the expectations on him in Buffalo were too high. And I think when he went to Vegas, I think he was able to play his game. He didn't have to be the hero every night. He didn't have to single-handedly drag the team anywhere. It's unrealistic to expect any player to single-handedly drag a team of 20 players into the playoffs or further in the playoffs. It's unrealistic. It has to be a team effort. You can have that superstar player that's excellent, but you've got to have depth. You've got to have good players around him. And when Jack Eichel got to Vegas, that's exactly what he had. And then he wins the Stanley Cup in 2023. So Jack Eichel, I think, has proven himself to be an excellent forward. He doesn't go beast mode as much as he used to, but he doesn't really need to. He doesn't have to go out there and try to do it all by himself. He's got really good line mates. He's got great chemistry with Mark Stone, for instance. So, yeah, Eichel, number 4. Number 3 on the list. From 2009. The one thing with Victor Hedman, I'm very surprised he has not won more Norris trophies. And at this stage of his career, highly unlikely he wins another Norris trophy. Not impossible. It is possible he wins a Norris trophy, but it is highly unlikely he does. And that's kind of sad. Just a little bit. Victor Hedman, an excellent defenseman, franchise defenseman for the Tampa Bay Lightning. They don't win the Cup in 2020 or 2021 if they do not have Victor Hedman. He has been an absolute beast, and for a very long time. And numerous years where I did, who I felt were the best defensemen in the NHL, I had Hedman at number 1, and I had no doubt in my mind. There wasn't something in the back of my mind going, well, wait a minute, I don't know. I feel like Hedman was the guy. Now, right now, I think it's the Makar-Quinn Hughes question. Right now, Makar is I think, better of the two, just barely. But Hedman is not that far off. It's not like Hedman's totals have dropped way off. It's not like he's an awful defenseman. He's still excellent, and he has just set that bar so darn high. Number 2 on the list, from 2004. So this is one, too, that I was like, I don't know. Evgeny Malkin, I might be able to argue at number 1. But I'm going to put him at number 2. I am. I'm going to put him at number 2. Pittsburgh Penguins forward, of course. There's the possibility this is his final season in Pittsburgh this year. Will that be the final season of his career? That's his call. He's had a very good, very long career. Was one of the most dominant forwards in the game at his peak. I have always argued that without Sidney Crosby, if he had played somewhere where he'd been a number 1 center and he'd been the guy, I think he would have scored more points, more goals. I think we'd be talking about him as one of the best players of all time. I think that Malkin being, fine with being that second-line center and getting 3 Stanley Cup rings and plenty of accolades himself, it says a lot about him as a player and not being as selfish as maybe some other players might be in the league. So, yeah, for me, Evgeny Malkin at number 2 seems like the absolute right place to put him. Because at number 1, from 2013... the amount of praise that Alexander Barkov gets at this point in his career, it's a lot. And it's that because there is no perfect player, but Barkov's darn close. He's darn close. Whether you're looking at it from a statistical point of view of just goals, assists, if you want to go into plus minus, I don't necessarily recommend it because people don't like plus minus. But if you look at it from an analytics standpoint too, analytically, he's fantastic. It is very difficult to point to a single play over the last few years where Barkov's made a mistake. Where you can say, well, there was that turnover by Barkov. Man, that was brutal. Nope. And it would be understandable because he plays a lot. He plays in a lot of key situations for Florida. It would be understandable if he made some key mistakes here and there. It'd be completely forgivable. Wouldn't hurt his reputation at all, but he just doesn't do that. Florida wins back-to-back Stanley Cups. He doesn't win those Stanley Cups via a bunch of points. He helps them win it by just being able to shut down opposing forwards as well as anybody in the game. And he can score points as well on top of it. So for me, Barkov's number 1 on the list. Totally understand if you have Malkin at number 1, because that was the argument I was having with myself a bit. was here at number 1, and then 4 through 6 as well, and a little bit with Carlson, asking myself, so do I want to have Carlson above some of these guys? And my answer to that was, yeah, I think at this point, that's where I would rank them in terms of as overall players throughout their careers. But it's a fun list. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. As always, hit like and subscribe in the event that you may not have done so already. I'll do this for number 3, number 4 as well. I'm not going to go much further than that. I'll mix things up a little bit. There were some draft videos I talked about doing around the draft. And now that we're into July, I'm going to have time to throw some of those together. So stay tuned for that. But for now, I'm done. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. As always, hit like and subscribe in the event you may not have done so already. Thank you guys so much for all your support, especially during the summer when it's, beautiful outside and it's hot and people want to be outside and at the beach. So if you're watching this video today, thank you. Kudos to you. And I will talk to you again soon.